I know that the ones who love us will miss us. At 60, Keanu Reeves shattered his kneecap filming John Wick, but came back 3 days later. He's been robbed, impersonated by AI scammers, and spent $50,000 monthly protecting fans from fake profiles using his face. In 2025, he stepped onto Broadway for 8 shows a week, barely able to walk. Critics called him brilliant, but behind the curtain, something else was happening. After decades of hiding pain, surgeries, and heartbreak, Keanu finally spoke about what comes next. This isn't retirement. It's something nobody saw coming, and Hollywood still doesn't know how to handle it. Keanu Reeves was born on September 2, 1964, in Beirut. His father, Samuel, was Hawaiian Chinese, and his mother, Patricia, was British. They met in Beirut when Samuel was 21 and Patricia had just 19. Patricia was working in costume design, and Samuel was drifting between jobs, already living a wild life. Keanu's name means cool breeze over the mountains in Hawaiian, but his early years were anything but calm. Just 3 weeks after Keanu was born, the family moved to Sydney. A year later, Samuel vanished from their lives completely. By the time Keanu turned 3, Patricia had moved to New York, raising him alone. And that was just the start of their endless moving. Keanu's dad was already deep into drugs when he disappeared, but Keanu kept visiting him in Hawaii until he turned 13. Their final meeting in 1977 was strange. They just sat under the stars, quietly, and then the next day, Samuel dropped him at the airport. That was it. He never saw him again. Years later, when someone asked Keanu where his dad was, he said it was like the earth swallowed him. When Samuel ended up in prison, Keanu didn't even know. The emotional damage was permanent. Patricia tried to build a stable life, but her love life kept things rocky. She married Broadway director Paul Aaron in 1970. That only lasted a year. Then in 1976, she married rock promoter Robert Miller. They had a daughter, Karina. Later came her fourth husband, Jack Bond, a salon owner. That ended in 1994. Meanwhile, her work in showbiz brought all kinds of strange moments into Keanu's childhood. They lived near Nimbus 9 Studio in Toronto. That's where rock stars came and went. One time, Alice Cooper babysat him. He met Emmylou Harris. He met Dolly Parton, too, but none of that made him feel grounded. By the time Keanu was 17, he'd been in 4 different high schools. He was expelled from one of them, a tobacco school of the arts, for being too disruptive. At De La Salle College, he became a hockey goalie and got the nickname The Wall, but his dyslexia made school hard. Reading was a struggle, and he said he always felt like an outsider. At Andale, his last school, he gave up completely. He never got a high school diploma. He dropped out and turned to acting instead. In 1992, while Keanu was becoming famous, his father was arrested in Hawaii for trying to sell heroin. He had large amounts of cocaine, too. He got 10 years in prison, but only served as guards treated him well because of Keanu's fame. He even got his GED behind bars. Once someone told him that Keanu had died in a crash, and he broke down crying, but still he never reached out. Keanu never spoke to him again. Samuel died in 2018. Still estranged, at 15, Keanu was barely holding things together in school. His dyslexia made him feel lost in class, and he often pretended to understand things. He was expelled for being loud and impulsive. At Andale, he couldn't keep up. He said himself, "Because I had trouble reading, I wasn't a good student." He started acting just to survive. Pretending wasn't just for stage anymore. It became a way of life. When he was a teenager, hockey was his escape. He was a brilliant goalkeeper. He thought he might play professionally, maybe even make it to the Olympics. But then, he shattered his ankle in a brutal accident. He said he could see the bone. Just like that, his dream ended. With nowhere else to go, he turned to acting. In 1984, Keanu got his first TV role in a Canadian show called Hanging In. He played a troubled teen. The strange part was he really was a troubled teen in real life. He was battling anxiety and loneliness from all the moving, the stepdads, and the chaos. He would play hockey with friends just to calm his nerves. That same year, he got a theater role in a strange play called Wolfboy in Toronto. It was controversial and intense. His performance was raw, physical, and unforgettable. Some scenes became local legends. This was the moment he started to get noticed. In 1985, he drove his car to Hollywood to chase acting dreams. But agents told him his name was too foreign. They wanted him to change it to something more American, like Casey or Chuck. For a while, he used the name Casey Reeves, but eventually, he refused. He said it felt wrong to hide who he was. That decision shaped his path. His breakout came in 1986 with the movie River's Edge. The character he played had to deal with the murder of a friend. The story was based on a real crime. Keanu didn't just act. He felt it. It reminded him of all the detachment and pain he carried inside. In 1989, he was cast in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He originally auditioned for the role of Bill, but the director switched him to Ted because of the chemistry with co-star Alex Winter. They even improvised a lot of the scenes. The script was first written on napkins. No one expected it to become a cult hit. Then came Point Break. In 1991, Keanu trained for months to learn surfing. He nearly drowned several times. He trained with FBI agents, and even quarterback coaches. He gave everything to that role. After the movie, he kept surfing for life. In 1986, he filmed Youngblood, a hockey movie with Rob Lowe and Patrick Swayze. He played a goalie again. He did all his own stunts. Pucks were flying at 90 miles per hour. He didn't use a stunt double. That film showed how serious he was. He would risk anything for the story. In 1994, while filming Speed, Keanu Reeves didn't want his stunt double doing his job. He ended up doing about 90% of all the dangerous scenes himself. One of the most unforgettable ones was when the bus had to jump across a gap on the highway. But during one of those stunts, something went wrong. The bus malfunctioned and launched him nearly 20 feet into the air. He hit the ground hard, cracked to ribs, and got a concussion. He didn't tell the director because he didn't want them to stop filming. He just kept going. Things got worse when they filmed on a real highway near San Diego. No one told the cast that actual vehicles would be involved that day. Suddenly, the bus started crashing into real cars. Keanu said the people on board screamed in real fear because no one expected it. Still, he pushed through. And when Speed hit theaters, it made $350 million worldwide. Even though it only cost around $30 million to make, that film turned him into a true action star. But behind the scenes, it nearly broke him. Then something shocking happened. After Speed became a huge hit, Warner Brothers offered Keanu a deal worth $75 million. It included back-end profits and merchandising rights. But he said no. He didn't even blink. It wasn't about the money. He just didn't want to be controlled. He believed in staying true to the work, not the paycheck. Later in 1997, he even rejected $11 million for Speed 2, so he could take a role in The Devil's Advocate, a movie that gave him a chance to show another side of himself. His own agent said it was career suicide, but Keanu believed in doing what felt right, not what looked smart on paper. To get Al Pacino on board for The Devil's Advocate, he even agreed to take a big pay cut. He just wanted the story to work. His earlier attempt at Shakespeare in the 1993 movie, Much Ado About Nothing, didn't go well. Critics said his performance felt stiff and unnatural. He struggled with the lines. But there was something the critics didn't know. Keanu had dyslexia. So did Emma Thompson. The two of them stayed up late after long shoots, helping each other read and understand the complex language. She helped him learn how to speak those lines, and their friendship grew stronger because they both understood how hard it was. That movie may have embarrassed him publicly, but privately, it taught him how to keep going, even when you feel like you're falling behind. Then came Johnny Mnemonic in 1995, and everything that could go wrong did. The movie started with a $26 million budget, but after Speed's success, Sony tried to turn it into a blockbuster. Keanu clashed with the director over everything from the casting to the action scenes. He even walked off the set twice. The director later called the whole thing corrupt and torturous. The movie was supposed to be small and smart, based on William Gibson's cyberpunk story, but it got twisted into something else. They spent way more money than planned, and the final version didn't match anyone's vision. It lost almost $100 million globally. Keanu later admitted that his big dreams about using new technology in the movie weren't ready for reality. When The Devil's Advocate came out in 1997, people noticed a new depth in Keanu's acting. What most didn't know was that he was pulling from real pain. His father had walked out when Keanu was just 3. The last time he saw him was when he was 13 during a trip to Hawaii. They watched the night sky together, and the next morning, his father was gone. No police, no hospital records, just gone. After The Devil's Advocate, Hollywood saw Keanu in a new light. He wasn't just an action hero anymore, he was an actor with depth, mystery, and quiet pain. Then came 1999, a film that would change his life forever, The Matrix. When the Wachowskis first approached him with the script, most studios didn't understand it. Bullet time, artificial reality, simulation theory, all of it sounded insane. Keanu, though, was fascinated. He spent months reading philosophy books just to understand what Neo's journey meant. But then came the physical challenge. Keanu was suffering from a serious spinal injury at the time, a herniated disc so severe that doctors warned him he could lose mobility. He couldn't kick higher than his waist. Yet the movie demanded intense martial arts choreography. Most actors would have quit. Keanu didn't. He underwent painful surgery, then returned to training. Just weeks later, he trained for 8 hours a day, every day, learning kung fu, jujitsu, and wire work from Yuen Whooping, the same master who trained Jackie Chan. He couldn't feel parts of his legs, but he refused to give up. When The Matrix premiered in March 19, it changed cinema forever. The slow-motion bullet time, the cyberpunk visuals, the philosophy, it was revolutionary. The film made over $460 million and turned Keanu into a global icon. But even then, when the studio handed him millions in back-end profits, he quietly gave away tens of millions of dollars to the special effects and costume departments. he said. Asterisk, they are the real heroes of this movie. Asterisk, while the world saw a superstar, Keanu's private life was unraveling. In 1998, he met Jennifer Syme, an actress and assistant working for director David Lynch. The two fell deeply in love. Jennifer became pregnant with their daughter, Ava. But on Christmas Eve 1999, Ava was stillborn. The tragedy shattered them both. They tried to stay together, but grief was too heavy. They separated. Though they remained close friends, 18 months later, tragedy struck again. Jennifer was driving home from a party in Los Angeles when her car crashed. She was killed instantly. Keanu went silent for months. He disappeared from Hollywood, giving no interviews, avoiding premieres, and spending his time alone. He once said, grief doesn't end. It changes shape, but it never goes away. People began calling him the sad Keanu, after a photo of him eating alone on a park bench went viral. But what they didn't see was that he wasn't sad, he was just reflective. He said, sometimes I just sit and think. I'm not unhappy, I'm just thinking. Through all this pain, Keanu kept working. He returned for The Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, doing almost all his stunts himself, including fights that took months to choreograph. He trained with over 100 different martial artists, rehearsing for hours until every movement was perfect. The second and third films earned over $1 billion combined by the late 2000s. Keanu had stopped chasing fame altogether. He started riding the subway alone in New York, helping strangers without knowing he was being filmed. There were countless stories. Keanu giving up his seat, buying meals for crew members, giving away his salary so others wouldn't be fired. But he never bragged. He said, money means nothing to me. What matters is time. Then came John Wick a film that almost didn't get made. In 2014, directors Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, both of whom had worked as Keanu's stunt doubles on The Matrix, pitched him the story of a retired hitman avenging the death of his dog, that it was supposed to be a small, straight-to-video action flick. Keanu saw something deeper in it: grief, rage, redemption. He trained for 5 months, doing 90% of his own stunts, mastering judo and tactical gun work. What followed was an unexpected rebirth. John Wick became a global phenomenon, launching a new action franchise that redefined Hollywood choreography. It wasn't about explosions, it was about precision, realism, and emotional storytelling through movement. Keanu didn't just act, he lived the role. He performed fight scenes that lasted over 10 minutes in a single take, without doubles. And he did it all with quiet humility. Between films, Keanu founded Arch Motorcycle Company, building custom motorcycles by hand. He said the engines helped him find peace. He also published poetry, created a comic book called BRZRKR, and began quietly funding children's hospitals under anonymous names. When John Wick 4 was released, fans noticed something. Keanu looked older, slower, even exhausted. But what they didn't know was that he was still recovering from knee and spine surgeries. He pushed his body to its limits for the art he loved. He said, I do it because I love storytelling. Pain is just part of the journey. Now, in 2025, Keanu has taken his story full circle, returning to the stage, performing live on Broadway and Waiting for Godot. Each night, he steps out limping slightly, but his presence fills the room. He's not chasing fame anymore. He's chasing truth. Critics say his Broadway performance is haunting, human, and raw. A man facing time, loss, and meaning itself. Offstage, he rides his motorcycle through New York streets at dawn, often unnoticed, blending in with the crowd. He says, I just want to live quietly, with gratitude, after decades of fame, heartbreak, and pain. Keanu Reeves remains what he's always been: humble, human, and real. He's proof that you can survive loss, walk through fire, and still be kind. As Keanu entered his 60s, fans noticed something else changing, not just his body, but his spirit. He began speaking more openly about life, death, and purpose. When a child once asked him on a talk show, "What happens when we die?" Keanu paused. The audience laughed at first, waiting for a joke. But then he said softly, I know that the ones who love us will miss us. The room went silent. It was one of those moments where everyone realized he wasn't acting, he was speaking. From a lifetime of loss, he has lived through pain. Most people couldn't survive the loss of his father, his best friend, River Phoenix, his daughter, his partner, and years of loneliness. But through it all, he never became bitter. He never stopped giving. He never stopped believing that kindness still matters. Even today, he's known as Hollywood's nicest man. But those who know him say it's not about being nice, it's about being aware. He remembers names, helps strangers, and stays grounded when everyone else is chasing the spotlight. His co-stars call him the soul of the set. Crew members say he thanks everyone, from the lighting guy to the coffee runner, every single day. But fame, for him, has always been fragile. He never built his identity around it. He said once, fame is like a cloud. The sun moves, and it's gone. Asterisk, that's why he keeps disappearing, not out of sadness, but because peace is louder than applause. When asked about success, Keanu doesn't talk about awards or money. He talks about people, about his sister Kim, who battled leukemia for years. Keanu sold his home and lived in hotels for a decade just to stay near her hospital. He secretly donated millions to cancer research under fake names. He once said, asterisk, if I can help one person feel less pain, that's worth more than any movie. Asterisk, and that's the truth of Keanu Reeves. He's not the man Hollywood tried to turn him into. Ease, the man life sculpted through scars, loss, and love. When you look at him now, the gray in his hair, the slow, deliberate movements, the eyes that have seen too much, you realize he isn't pretending to be wise. He earned that wisdom. Every line on his face tells a story of survival. Every quiet smile hides a storm that's finally calm. In 2025, while promoting his Broadway return, a journalist asked him, Keanu, after everything you've been through, what keeps you going? He smiled and said, asterisk, love. Just love. For people, for stories, for being alive. That's enough. Asterisk, that's who he is. Not Neo, not John Wick, not a movie star, just Keanu. Man who found peace in chaos. A man who taught that that strength isn't about power, it's about compassion. That silence can be louder than fame, and that even after everything, you can still choose kindness. Asterisk, maybe that's why the world loves him. Not because he's perfect, but because he reminds us what it means to be human. Perfect, but because he reminds us what it means to be human.